bit after kind of a crazy, it's been a crazy last couple of days trying to figure out what to do given the closing off of the United States as a free trade nation. Yes. Going into the decline of the empire. Let's go. What are we going to do? By the way, if anybody has any tea questions or whatever, feel free to ask them over here. People are asking, what am I drinking today? I'm going to be drinking some of this this white tea. This is a sisterized white tea, but it's a unpressed white tea. This is what the white tea looks like before it's pressed into a cake or a ball. And it's one of the reasons why you often find white tea pressed is because loose, this bag of white tea actually doesn't have that much tea in it. And so imagine shipping this all over the world in this very very loose form. And also, as you'll see, even here, trying to take care of it, the bottom's getting crushed. So the challenge with the white tea is always like, how do you get the good leaves to people without it getting destroyed? And so that's usually why it's pressed. But because I got this straight from the farmers and because I brought it back in my suitcase, I have a small amount of this loose white tea available. And one of the other things about having a tea this, in Chinese they call pao, it's fluffy, it's very loose, is that you're gonna put what looks like a lot of tea into the gaiwan, but as you're gonna see very quickly, it's gonna start to shrink. And so when you have a very fluffy tea like that, sometimes it's good to kind of overstuff the gaiwan a little bit. So you see here, it looks pretty damn full, but the moment that I actually go and wind up, getting to put water into it, we're gonna have we're gonna see the leaves kind of flatten a little bit and be less fluffy. So, cheers everybody. Questions over here. Gonna buy some more raw pu'er tea soon. Yes, good raw. If you haven't tried the Sister I's Everyday Shone, it's I think very good for the price. Also, my friend Doi Doi's 2017 Iwu Mountain 7-year aged for not that much more money. It's also a very good choice. I'm gonna cool the water down just a little bit before I put it in here. By the way, if you don't have a temperature control kettle and you want to cool your water a little bit, you can always put it into the pitcher beforehand and let the glass kind of soak up a little bit of that heat. And so that way you started it boiling and you know that you're going down from boiling by sucking out some of the heat. So cheers everybody. Get that in there. Awesome. And when you have a fluffy tea like this, you can also kind of poke it down in there a little bit. Very good. I'm just gonna do a very quick wash of this. This is a very young white tea. I think this is a 2023, so it's gonna be very light. And it's, in my opinion, needs a little bit more time, but it's very fruity and it's very light and sweet. You can see that first steep over there. We are going to be, I'm gonna take your questions in just a moment. I'm just getting my tea ready, actually. I'm really in need of my tea today because it's just kind of a rough day trying to figure out how to run shit in the new world. I'm very unsure about a lot of things. So cheers to everybody. And thank you for coming on live. If you have a chance to be able to get your own tea stuff while we're out here, break out your own tea stuff. Highly advise it. All right. And here we go. First steep of the, this is a 1,000-year tree white tea. So part of the reason I have a sample of it is because Sister I keeps trying to sell me more of her 1,000-year tree teas, which are really good, but they're very expensive. So we have a 1,000-year red tea on the website, which is really good. And maybe we should do a 1,000-year white. But if we do a 1,000-year white, I kind of want to have it age a little bit more. So cheers. The oldest of the old trees. Cheers, everybody. Oh, that's really fruity. It does need more age, but when it gets that more age, it's going to be really, really good. I should probably stop using the little of it I have because I want it to age more. All right, let's get to some questions over here. There we go. Zach Duncan says, not good, but expensive. Well, this is the thing, is like, that's why I don't sell it on the shop, is like, it's probably worth what they're charging for it because it's 1,000-year-old tea trees. There's not many of them and they make a very small amount. But just because the market has decided it's worth a certain amount doesn't mean that I personally would spend my money on it. It's not that I wouldn't, but I just find that if I'm gonna pay this much money, I'd rather pay that much money and have it be better and let it age. And a lot of that price comes from the fact that it's a 1,000-year tree. So it's going to go up in price when it ages, but compared to the base price, it's not going to increase by as much. So very cool. Ferris Stars, is any updates on the tea resin shipment? No, we still have 7 weeks, 8 weeks now. I don't forget how long it's been. We've had that shipment stuck in customs. Very, very frustrating. That's kind of what I wanted to talk about on the live stream today, is just the customs problems. If you haven't seen my new video, the big news is that we're gonna have to delay our May subscription box. I just simply don't have faith in the customs system that they will pass the tea through in time for us to be able to make a May 1st launch. And I have to go back and look depending on when the goods enter the country. If they enter them in late April, I'm paying one price for them. If they enter on the first week of May, I'm paying a second price for them. So the new laws with the tariffs come into effect, I think it's either May 1st or May 2nd. I think it's May 2nd. And basically I'm just in a gambling match. I don't know how much I'm paying for the goods that I thought I knew what I was buying. And similarly, that could affect the price of the subscription box. If we get it in before the tariffs come, of course, I'm not charging anyone for tariffs I'm not paying. If we get it in after the subscription box, I may even need to adjust my price. I will probably need to do math to figure out, if it comes in late, what we're going to have to pay. It's also unclear, like, what if it arrives before, but it's not taken off the boat because everybody is in a crunch because they changed the rules. It's gonna be total madness. And I just cannot, in good faith, promise everybody to deliver the tea at a certain price if I don't know the rules that my country works by. So as the rules change also, even if the customs officials want to do their job properly, I read the executive orders. It's not really given exactly how they're going to make these changes. And the customs enforcement could decide to take a couple different routes of how they enforce it. And that could also affect what people are paying. But I need to avoid the possibility that I'm going to wind up paying a bunch of these tariffs and then be running a subscription club that loses money. And then every subscription that goes out, we did all this work and found the tea and found the packaging and put it all together. And we might even lose money sending it out to everybody, which is just not, I just can't run a business that way. So we will be giving everybody updates as we have them. Similarly, the EU store as well, nothing's changing in the short term. The EU and UK store, because all the goods that I have there are already kind of in. But if the EU has retaliatory tariffs against the United States, it's possible we will see a price increase. I've been asking my EU and UK tax people what's going to happen. But the truth is, a lot of them don't even know this, because this is a very unusual history we're living through. America generally has been a free trade nation, really from its beginning. And so moving to this more like planned economy thing is very unusual. So we're all trying to figure out what it means. So a lot of questions over here. Questions from Henley O'Manley. Isn't it weird how much Bernie, Nancy, and Obama liked tariffs in the past? I'm not sure what you're referring to, but it's important that every president has used tariffs as a weapon of some sort. This is new, though, that they've been used so broadly and against allies as well. China is a little bit of a tricky situation. I obviously, as a Chinese tea guy, want the Chinese tea to be untaxed, but there are kind of better geopolitical reasons for using tariffs against like competitor countries, not for allied countries. It's very unusual and it's almost unique in American history. So I'm sure we got history lovers in there if we're bringing up past presidencies. So it's good to keep a perspective on it. Questions over here. Henry O'Manley says free trade doesn't mean we get tariffed and they don't. So the tariffs are reciprocal. So it doesn't matter who starts the war, it ends up in the same place. So if the United States puts a tariff on something almost always that country retaliates by putting tariffs on us. And if they put tariffs on, generally the United States will retaliate against them. So, you know, it really is a question of like, you know, no, he hit me. No, he hit me. No, he hit me. And just as a business person and as a customer, it really doesn't matter to me. You know, if I'm going to suffer because of it as a business person, and if I'm going to give worse quality goods or the same quality goods at a worse price to my customers because of the fighting, I want my leaders, whatever party, whatever country, I don't care. I want them to act like adults, and I want them to figure out a way that we can like live in a better world together. And this retaliating tit for tat, tit for tat, tit for tat, it's a very short-sighted game. And we have enough evidence from previous use of tariffs as kind of weapons to show that they don't do most of the things that kind of proponents of the tariffs want them to do. If the goal is to revive American manufacturing, we can just subsidize American manufacturing. It doesn't need to cause a ripple throughout the entirety of the global supply chain to achieve that goal. Similarly with China, the executive orders, which I encourage everybody to read, the actual wording and the reasoning behind the executive orders. The executive orders with China, the ones that are going to be affecting my livelihood and then our customers, the official reason for them is to stop the flow of fentanyl from China to the United States, which is actually a great thing. You know, obviously, we need anything we can do to stop the flow of fentanyl is probably a good thing. But the tariffs don't actually do that. If you want to stop fentanyl, it's you'd put up checks at the border. You would, you know, maybe even have a fee or a tariff, but it's tied directly to the amount of fentanyl that's being caught. So that if the amount of fentanyl goes down, you create an incentive for the Chinese government to be able to police their own people and send less stuff over. But the tariffs don't do that. And I've lived in the reality of the trade war with China since 2017. And I've seen in my own sphere of people who are basically in this US-China space, how businesses have left, culture has left, art has left, everybody has left because the trade war is being adjudicated not to specific goals, but just out of a general kind of dislike and mistrust for each other. And it creates a situation where, as I said, tit for tat, tit for tat. I've been seeing it go off the cliff in slow motion for 7 years. So I think there are arguments for tariffs in certain situations, but neither the stated reason, which is the blocking of fentanyl into the United States, nor the economic reasons like the regrowth of American manufacturing actually explain these tariffs. And that's what makes me scared, is that it doesn't seem to matter that the goals that people are saying with their mouth and the actions that they're taking with their pen don't match up. And it doesn't take too much analysis to see that they don't match up. So that's really part of the reason why I'm so frustrated with this. Cheers, questions. Questions over here. Chen, hey, I'm a fellow Chinese tea head in LA from Fujian. I've been in the US for 3 years. Hey, 应该过来喝茶. Good, always good to have Fujian people are the best. I made a video about Fujian tea people earlier this week. Yeah, I mean, I don't have an in-person tea house in LA, but we do have a Discord server. If you search up Jesse's Teahouse Discord, you can find it, and we have an LA sub chat in there. And we have like people meet up, people get a chance to have tea with each other. Highly recommend that you go to the Jesse's Teahouse Discord and see that. Cheers. Questions over here. Anonymous Jay says, politics affect economics and businesses, so it makes sense to bring it here. Yeah, so if anybody watches my channel, they know that, you know, I'm not like hyper political. I'm actually very much a pragmatist. I mean, I lived in America, I lived in China. I think that both countries do things well that the other one doesn't do. I try to proceed from first principles. I don't belong to any particular party in the United States. And I think that when things wind up devolving into the type of political discussion that you see online, they tend to be very ineffective. So even there are situations where I'm like, oh, that person's right, or I think that person's wrong. But I can see that neither of them are doing any good work about actually bridging the gap and making stuff better. And I'm a bridge maker. So whether that's tea culture to people that don't know tea, or Chinese culture to Americans, or American culture to China through doing stand-up comedy and sketch comedy and that sort of stuff there. I like being in the middle and bringing people together. And so I'm very willing to accept that, anyone who is helping to bring people together and to make the world a better place and make us more connected and make us be able to live better on the earth together, I think they're an ally. And anybody who is, preventing that is not doing a good job, in my opinion. And that's independent of political faction or even nationality. I don't need to see your passport to see whether you're, like, as a human being, doing good things. And obviously it's complicated. But I think that people who are like, oh, I don't want to be dealing with politics. I mean, there's been no human society in history where you haven't had to deal with politics in some way. I think the main thing that I'm frustrated with, having come back to America after a long time overseas, is just this complete disinterest from each side to talk to each other, and the desire to feel right and righteous at the expense of actually living with the people that we're in a country with. There are a lot of people in this country I don't agree with. The game is figuring out how we all live together. There are a lot of people in other countries I don't agree with. The game is figuring out how we all live together. And so the one of the ways that I found to do that is through creative work, making videos, doing comedy. Another way I've found it out, weirdly enough, and I wouldn't have never expected this, is by doing business. I find that when I do business with China, I get to meet all these great people. You build trust. I have to pay them money and hope that they'll send the stuff over. You build trust in some ways through contracts, but a lot of ways it's through human effort. I go to China, I meet with people, and similarly in America, I really wish there was more of an effort to do that. I think everybody is kind of assuming, because we're all from the same country, that we'll just get along without ever having to interact with each other. And I don't think that's true. And so I think that sharing what's actually happening in my life, as a businessman and a creator on this channel, I mean, I try to be careful about it whenever it comes into the political junk. But I think it's important that people realize who's going to suffer because of decisions that we make, especially when we're not forced to make them. I think that it's one thing if you're in wartime or something like that. But the truth is that America is a very high standard of living, and America is a very strong country, and there's no need for giant radical change that's going to be so disruptive, unless it's been very well researched, and none of the stuff that's being done has been very well researched. I've tried to be as even-handed as I can. I read the executive orders. I don't read news reports about them. I go to the original documents. I look at what's actually happening. I try as much to get my viewpoint informed by the actual things that are happening instead of this station or that station's spin on it. I am not particularly, I'm not particularly aligned with either political party in America. So what I'm telling you is what I feel. So I mean, I would, believe me, I'd much prefer to not be talking about my company getting disrupted by tariffs. I'd much be rather talking about this beautiful white tea I'm drinking. And so that's also another cost of the tariffs. And it's a cost that I dealt with every day in China. When my version of that in China is I'm a comedian, and so I would do jokes, and I would have to think about whether my jokes are going to work on Chinese TV from an artistic perspective, like, will the audience think they're funny, but also like, will the government let me do it? And so that will the government let me do it question, in America, we're not having that problem with comedy, but we're having it with trade. Will America let me get the best tea? If the best tea is in China, is the government going to be helping me try to get really good tea to people in America by working with the Chinese and creating good trade deals so that we can make sure to be blocking stuff like fentanyl while also having goods come in? Or is the government going to be harming me by putting up these tariffs and these blocks? This is not a political question so much, or it's not a partisan question, I should say. It's a political question, but I think that, I think it's this is stuff this is a tax to have to think about that. The time that I would be spending improving my company and, making tea for people and doing other stuff is being spent on this. So questions over here. What tea is best for a teapot and what tea is best for a gaiwan? That's a good question. So that you can have like a clay gaiwan and a porcelain teapot, or you can have a clay teapot and a porcelain gaiwan. The shape matters some, and the material matters more, in my opinion. Porcelain is high fired, so it's fired at a high temperature, and so that means that the holes in the actual structure of the clay are very small, and as such, it's kind of more of like a neutral base of these, a neutral base for the tea to be steeped in. The result is like it's gonna kind of taste the way it tastes. With the clay, it'll depend on like if you're using it as like a clay teapot, there's going to be absorption of the tea into the clay, which could do various things depending on the clay. Specifically, the teapot versus the gaiwan. Depending on the size of your teapot, it may constrict the leaves, which is important. That's why it's important not to overfill your teapot. It also, I think you tend to get more heat from the teapot because the walls of the teapot are hot, and it's keeping the water hot, as opposed to the gaiwan that has like kind of an open face, and so I think it's going to lose the heat more. So any tea you really want to blast with as much heat as possible. A pu'er, an aged white tea, a yen cha, like a rock tea, stuff like that. I think you could make an argument it's going to be better in a teapot, but I make my pu'er in a gaiwan all the time, and I like it a lot. So I don't think these issues are so big that like people should be very, very worried about what equipment they use. I'll put it this way. I think it's more important to learn the equipment you actually have. Like, I have this gaiwan. How does this gaiwan react? It might react differently than another gaiwan from another size, in another shape, with another material. But this is the one that's in your house. So learn how that one reacts. And you say, hey, what if I make it really hot? What if I make it really cold? What if I put the lid on? What if I take the lid off? What if I warm up the gaiwan before I make it? There's lots of stuff you can do with the equipment you actually have. And I think that's like more practically going to be of help in making great tea time, to be able to do that. So great. Good questions over here. A.M. Whitson. Hi, Jesse, Nora, and Ashley. Say hi. Hello, Nora and Ashley. Welcome. Good. If you guys have time to get out your tea stuff, please do get out your tea stuff. Very, very good. Vidor says expand your European store then. We're working on it. We're working to get all the new teas that will be coming onto the website in the future, all or most of them, into the European store. The EU standards for pesticides are very, very high, and it's a huge problem for Chinese tea. Not even because of the pesticides, but sometimes because of the pesticides, but a lot of times just because of the cost. The cost of testing for 600 something pesticides for a market that is still pretty small and niche is kind of the big issue. But we are getting more and more of our teas passed through the testing. I'm paying for it. I sent a wire transfer for $9,000 US to a testing agency 2 weeks ago. And we're getting the results back, and so far everything has been looking pretty good. And again, it's only good because we're using ancient tree tea, which is, again, wild, grown up in the forest, no pesticide. And even then, there's always trace stuff in the air, so it's like crazy. Like but nothing that's caused us to not be able to sell the stuff. So we're gonna be expanding the European store as well. I guess in hindsight, it was probably good that we opened those up, but we'll see. I hope that the Europeans and the British don't get so angry at Americans that they stop buying American stuff, even though this is coming from China. It's nuts. Question from Pasal's, are the tariffs already affecting the business, or do you have a lot of stock? The tariffs are not going to affect anything that's already come into the country. But we run a subscription club where every 3 months we have 3 new teas, and that requires not just getting new teas in regularly, but also like the amount of planning we have to spend to have stuff come out every 3 months. We have to find the teas, we have to pick the teas, we have to package the teas, we have to design the packaging, we have to print the packaging, we have to get the stuff in the packaging, we have to seal up all the packaging, we have to get the packaging from the tea mountains to the port, we have to go through tons of paperwork on the China side to export it. We need to send the money over. We need to show the bank statements matching the money that we sent over and the wire transfer to the amount of the value of the goods. Then we have to get them on a boat, and then they have to arrive at customs, and then they have to get through American customs and show all those papers again, and then we have to pay the tariffs or other customs fees. So this process, to do that every 3 months, we're already working 6 to 9 months ahead of time, and that's not going to be enough if customs winds up being more of a problem. So it's not just the fees, but it's the actual disruption within the system of doing the customs that has made this difficult, because I just can't, as a business person, say, we're gonna send you tea every 3 months. If I don't know how long it's going to take them to do the customs work. Once I did all my work to get it to the port, if there's a muck up because of the change of the customs rules, you know, we have a shipment already that's been waiting 7 weeks in customs to get cleared. I did all my work as a business person. There's nothing more I can do. And so that is the challenge to me, is how do I continue to run this system? Right now, I'm just gonna have to work further ahead of time. We may have to do 9 or even 12 months ahead of time. I might need to pay money and lock up my own personal money in inventory that I'm not gonna sell for 9 months, because the people who are doing the actual stamping of the papers can't get it done fast enough. It's a bad scenario. This is like, it's bad for business. Whatever, there are arguments to say about it may be good for some other things, but it's definitely bad for business. That's for sure. Questions over here. You the GoPro. Thanks so much. I appreciate that. Cheers, man. Questions over here. We got Jesse. We love the tea. That's great. Juice Shore says, are the non-US customers a big part of your business, those who can order from another warehouse? Right now, the international orders are about 15% of people on the website. So yes and no. My hope is that 15% will grow now that we have the new warehouses. I'm really very, obviously, like anybody who's overseas and is already, even before the tariffs, paying the shipping and the long distances to like the shipping prices and the weights, I really appreciate you guys do that. I almost didn't even sell it overseas originally, because it was like, it's gonna be expensive, it's gonna be bad. So I recognize that it's a big lift for people outside of the USA to be buying this stuff, and so I really do thank you guys. And that's why I'm opening up the warehouses, because I wanna make it easier. I don't want it to be this hard. But because it's so hard, it's not a huge part of the business, but I think that, you know, it was enough that I was like, I think this is a good thing to try getting over more stuff. So it's definitely a good option. So I hope that in the future we're going to be able to have that be more. But it's definitely not enough to save the company if the American market crashes because of the increased prices. So that's my main worry. People are asking if in the EU or UK if it'll affect their prices, even if not directly. If the American company, which is basically most of the way that I make my living, if that winds up being a problem, then that could have a knock-on effect for our other customers, because we're not going to get to the same scale. And so if we can't get to the same scale, everything's more expensive, and that actually makes the products even more expensive. So it's nuts. It's crazy. Questions over here. Hey, how do we get your subscription, and what is the proper brew for Jasmine Dragon Pearl Tea? Good questions. To get the subscription, which by the way, you can still subscribe. We still have this subscription round plenty of stock, no tariffs. Same price as always on the website. You go to jessieteahouse.com, and it should be just like basically right up there. I have like most recommended items. It's like the #1 thing that's ordered on the website is a subscription. So the jessieteahouse.com. For the green dragon pearls, I don't know exactly. I always recommend people talk to the vendor who sold them the tea to ask how to make it best. But for any green tea like that, I would recommend, you know, try experimenting anywhere between like 75 Celsius and 95 Celsius. My thinking is 80 to 90 is usually kind of the sweet spot for the green tea. And depending on how much tea you use, you need to change the steep time. But if you're using about 3 grams, 4 grams of tea, it's like a fifth of an ounce or something like that, or a little bit less. I would steep it for like 30 seconds and try that. So I would try like 80 degrees Celsius for 30 seconds, but it depends on what the size of your vessel is. So there's no one way to say exactly here's how to make it. This is why I would ask the vendor. I do get a lot of people as they say, hey, I bought this tea from this guy. How do I make it? I was like, ask that guy. I'm always up for helping, but as you can see, there's a lot of variables I just don't know. Whereas with the teas on my website, they're on there because I drink them every day anyway. So when I give instructions, they actually have some sort of experience behind them with that specific tea. So cheers. Face reveal says, I can't see the Big Puff's face. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. The tea pets are on the wrong side of the table. We got Big Puff, we got Clyde, we got Nugget. Got a lot of good tea pets on the table. Questions from Amanda Bensel. What are the new teas from the subscription when it comes out? I have not announced them yet, but I will tell you that one of them is coming direct from Taiwan. So we have a Taiwan tea, and it's not an oolong tea. So we have a lot of Taiwanese oolongs, but we have less non-oolong Taiwanese teas. I actually don't think we have any non-oolong Taiwanese teas available right now. So I definitely am eager to help you guys get some of that. That tea is going to be really good. We also worked really hard on the packaging for the new teas as well. So I've seen the mock-ups, and I've seen the teas that are being packed, and I've seen the teas before they're shipped out, and it's awesome. Very cool. Questions over here from Miss Kamran Ali. Greetings and peace and salutations, brother. Life of this world is a short term. Every soul shall taste death. Worship none but one God. Come to Islam. Thank you so much, Brother Ali. I appreciate it. We're all trying to find our way through it. Everybody's got their own different way. Questions over here. Aster the Deer Fox says, hello, I love the Autumn Goddess Oolong tea. It was so good. Thank you. Appreciate it. Enjoy that tea. You also give it a try at a lower steep time. For whatever reason, I find that the Iron Goddess that I have in the subscription box, you can do it at boiling, but you can really do it anywhere between 85 Celsius and fully boiling. So you can try going in and, back and forth on that and see how it goes. So, there we go. So Aster the Deer Fox gave me a gift badge. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Questions over here. Bada Bing says, what should I do? I got a tenant with 4 kids not paying rent. I advise constant eye contact. No words, no nothing. Every second you can, constant eye contact. Be in the room. Open the door. They say, hey, I don't got the money. You don't say anything. You just lock eyes. And then you see the kids, you lock eyes with the kids, and then you lock eyes back on the parent. It should be 95% parent. Don't weird out the kids, but make the parent know you see everything. Eye contact. That's my advice. Cheers. Nicholas Leopard says, hi Jesse. Hello. Very nice. Jitty says, weird him out. Yeah, you gotta put a little bit of because it's eye contact, man. What does it mean? Should mean something. Does it? Does it mean anything? Does it mean nothing? That's the question. Any winks? No winks. You wink and then the power dissipates. The power comes from the strong eye contact with no context. And then that leads them to create the context, which leads them to freak out, which leads them to do exactly what you want them to do. I feel like this is my Andrew Tate moment. I gotta make like a fake Andrew Tate account or something like that. Just talk about like being a man, right? That'd be good. What should my fake Andrew Tate account name be? I wanted to make like a fake Gary V account called Larry T. I thought that would be really great. Just talking about like all sorts of random entrepreneurial hustle flip stuff. Here we go. Awesome. Excellent. I'll do 1 or 2 more questions, then I gotta get going. I have a meeting at 1 here. So questions over here. Any tips when you get to the middle part of a tea cake? I feel like it is 90% dust and broken tea leaves. That's from CN. Yeah, as you get to the end of a tea cake, it gets harder to, like, the good leaves are kind of gone, and so you might have either more compressed tea or it's kind of more broken. I made a video about this exact problem of, like, how do you make good tea with this sort of bottom of the bag type more broken stuff. The key is to remember that if it's overly compressed, like if it's like the hardest part of the disc, you're going to need to steep it longer and give it a longer wash to let it open up. And if it's the opposite, if it's kind of like crumbly bottom of the bag tea, or that sort of flaky kind of like detritus tea that kind of accumulates inside of the tea cake wrapping, that's going to steep really fast because it has a lot of surface area. It's going to act kind of like a tea bag, but not inside the bag, which gives it even more surface area, which steeps it even faster. So you need to be ready to have very fast steeps with those teas. You can still make it well, but it's harder as a skill issue. It's harder to make that sort of bottom of the bag crumbly tea dust stuff as good as you can with the full leaves. By the way, if anyone was here right at the beginning and I was overfilling this Sky One until it was over the top and you thought I had added too much, this is why I did it. Because now that everything is wet, it's like in there. So it's excellent. Seth is going to grab some of the Day's 2010 Pu'er. What you drinking? Cheers from Alaska. Great. I'll tell Gwede that his tea is making it all the way up to Alaska. I'm drinking this 1,000-Year Tree white tea from Sister I, which is a sample that she gave me. It is really good. I personally don't think it's worth what she wants me to pay for it, but it is really good. And so maybe this is one of those teas where I wait on it a year or two and say, hey, can you give it to me now, a little bit more aged, but at the old price? And then I think it would actually be worth it. If this is all I have of it, I got a little baggie. If this were 2 or 3 years more aged, I think it would be unbelievably good. So we're working on that. But very, very cool. It's Andrew Mate, Andrew Mate. Actually, that's pretty good for my fake Andrew Tate account. That would be a lot of fun. Juice Sure says, what are the challenges of keeping a tree alive for 1,000 years? Is it actual 1,000 years? It's a good question. So whether it's literally exactly 1,000 years, it's probably not. Could be 800, could be 1,200. It's usually around there. It's not super easy to age get the age count on some of these trees. But the people who have been living there will oftentimes have documentation way back into the dynastic periods about tea coming from that region, and the oldest trees in those regions. Some of them are actually most of them are wild, but some of them are actually farmed. Like, they do have an emperor 1,000 years ago made a tea farm and commissioned it, and there's paperwork, and it's been taken care of by successive guardians every generation for 1,000 years. So some of those teas are very well documented to be up at those kind of higher ages. But most of them are in natural areas that are just very difficult for humans to get to. And nowadays we have machines to build roads and cars and stuff, but really up until the 80s, 1980s in Yunnan, even in the 90s, a lot of these places didn't really have good roads. And so if you have a tea tree that's a 4-hour trek up a mountain from a place that has very bad roads leading to it, that's how you get a tree that lives a long time. It's just people don't get anywhere near it. And it's also one of the reasons why those trees are passing the EU pesticide tests, even as stringent as they are, because there's absolutely no pesticide on them because they grew up in the wild of the mountains. So that's one of the reasons why we're going to be able to have Sister I's teas on the EU shop. We got feedback for 5 of her teas. All of them passed all of the EU testing, which is a real accomplishment. It's I trust Sister I, and we've worked a lot together, but if she was lying about any of this stuff, it would have come out when we paid for all those chemical tests, and she's not. So the Sister I's teas are going to be available in the EU pretty soon. Now that they've passed the tests, we're going to start making orders. We're waiting for a couple more of her tests to come back, and we might need to do some follow-up tests on the tea resins. because we're getting different results for the resins that are just like tea, and then we're getting different results for the resins that have like the rose or the chen pea, like the orange peel in them. But it's super cool. Drew says, is it Yoast? I feel like it's Yoast, right? The J is probably a Y sound, right? Yoast, sure. Am I saying that right? I'm lucky if I can keep a houseplant alive for 6 months. Forget 6 months, I kill everything. Like people are like, you should farm your own tea. I'm like, it's gonna die, man. I can't keep a cactus alive. And it's hard to kill a cactus. And I'm looking at a droopy, like a houseplant cactus that I've just realized I haven't watered in like a month. So it's not happening. There you go. Anyway, questions. Hold on, Cassie is it? Oh, okay, great. I can spend another couple minutes. I just got a text from the person who's supposed to be here in 5 minutes, but they're going to be a little bit late, so I'm going to stay on a little bit longer. Let me just text them back to let them know that I got their message. Here we go. Yes, no rush. Yeah, here we go. If you need me to open the front door, use the screen outside, and I can buzz you up or text me when you are here. Great. Awesome. Thank you guys. Yeah, a little bit more time. Questions right here. Shaded says, as that's my max, would you be interested in sourcing from American tea farmers? I'm very interested. If there's any American tea farmers that have good quality tea at a good price. There are no American tea farms that have ancient tree tea. The trees are all very young because it's like there's no way of getting tea of the quality I buy from China. That being said, I do know there are a couple kind of like niche American tea growers that are trying to make good stuff. It's very expensive to make it here. It's not going to be better for the same price, that's for sure. You're going to pay more for the same, for like, you know, what the quality you get from China, you're going to pay more, the same amount of money for a lower quality product from America. But just as an American tea drinker in general, I'd be interested in trying it. I definitely don't want to feel like I'm being forced to try it by the way that the tax structures work. But like, yeah, I mean, similarly, if anybody knows an American porcelain supplier that can make custom porcelain of traditional Chinese tea equipment at a price that actually makes sense, I mean, I'm not opposed to doing the trade in America and not having to deal with all that shipping. Of course, I'd love to do it. But it's just not feasible. I'm also not sure Americans really even want that, whether they want to do the, you know, Americans were already having trouble filling the labor positions we have and sort of the service jobs. The idea that American laborers are going to go out and hand pick tea, like I just can't imagine it. And we're closing off the immigration options also, so I really don't. I don't see it being cost effective, but if it shows up in front of me and it's good and it's reasonably priced and it's tasty, I'd be up for trying an American tea just like personally as a tea drinker. And if it makes sense as a business, I'd be happy to do it. I'm really open. So that'd be a lot of fun. Questions over here. If anybody has any questions, by the way, I apologize of it. Drickstar, so having some of the Meijang red tea and using about 8 grams, go for it. Hoping it's really flavorful. That'll be good. Enjoy, because we don't sell that anymore, unfortunately. You know, we had to take it off the site. We sold out of it, and then when it came time to do a resale, to redo a restock, I was like, I have a lot of red tea and store it in stock already. Like, I kind of got to go through that, you know, and so it is a really good tea, and we did not take it off because it was bad, but we had a lot of red tea on the site at that time. Questions over here. Yeah, CN says there are a lot of great pottery folks, but they charge 100 to 500 USD for the labor and skill. Honestly, it feels like a loss to them. Yeah, people really truly underestimate how expensive it is to make stuff in the United States. In some ways, that's good because the part of the reason things are expensive is because people's time is valuable, and you know, respecting people's time is just a good thing. But there's also there's just a lot of things that go into making this country expensive. And another reason why if building domestic manufacturing power was actually the goal of these laws, they would just be subsidizing American factories, so tech industries, auto industry, whatever it is, heavy manufacturing, tech, whatever it is, and then they would subsidize them, like the government currently subsidizes, say, oil production. But again, that's why I really feel like a lot of the arguments that are being made in the public sphere about these tariffs are not intellectually honest. There are other ways of doing those things that are not as damaging, but they require Congress to pass laws, and it's not under the purview of one person in the executive branch. And if you're that one person in the executive branch, you don't want to have to deal with Congress. So a lot of this, in my opinion, is kind of using whatever powers do exist within the White House to get around the actual lawmaking process, because Congress is such a mess. I personally think that's scary. And as much as Congress is messed up, Congress is the tool of making laws. And it also is short-sighted because the moment another party's president comes into power, all of these are going to get reversed. So it creates a very uncomfortable situation where the party in power has an increasingly bigger stake in never giving up power again, or all the things they've created have been destroyed because instead of spending the time getting the laws passed through Congress, they're doing like quick fixes. But those quick fixes can be just as quickly reversed. So it's going to lead to a situation where the best case scenario is like everything seesawing every time the parties switch, and that's not a great position. Again, as a businessman, I wouldn't like it if there was a Democratic president that was suddenly making changes in the economy and turning the economy into a state-run economy. I don't like a Republican running the state-run economy. I don't like a Democrat running a state-run economy. I lived in China where they ran a state-run economy and it was very difficult to do business. I had a lot of fun there. The culture was amazing. The people were great. The state-run economy aspects were the hardest to deal with. And so it's shocking to me that Americans would want a state-run economy in the way that the market is currently being manipulated. It's crazy. Questions over here. Alaska should join BC and Yukon. I'd say BC and Yukon are very nice places, but I'm glad to have Alaska in our country. I always wanted to go to Alaska. My mom has been saying that she wants to go to Alaska on like a cruise this summer, which I think would be awesome. I've never been. It would be a ton of fun, I'm sure. Questions over here. Did you go to any tea shops in Vancouver? If so, which ones? I actually didn't. I didn't get there. We went to visit one or two, but they were already closed by the time that I went, and I was just going off of random recommendations from people. I did get to meet up with a woman named Claudia who runs like a tea thing in Vancouver, doing like tea events and stuff like that. Because she messaged me and she happened to be in the neighborhood where I was staying, so I was like, oh, come over. But I was only there for like 2 days to visit friends, so it was I didn't really have any time to do anything like that. So questions over here, like Kenny says, people are ignorant about economics and vote accordingly. It's hard. Economics is hard, man. Like no one knows it all. And I wouldn't say so much as that people are ignorant, it's that people are being manipulated. There was a very interesting thing that one of the economists said. There's a Korean economist, I'm trying to remember his name. He has a bunch of, I don't even know if I agree with him on a lot of stuff, but he has a lot of very interesting ways of looking at the problem. And he had a very interesting thing that he said, that now economics and the economy has kind of become what like God's will was back in the Middle Ages. So one king would say, I believe God's will is for me to do this because it's good for the kingdom. But I'm not gonna say it's my personal goal, I'm gonna say it's God's will. And another person would say, I think this is God's will. And they would all be able to show a quote from the Bible that says, well, if you look at that, it's clear what God's will is. If you look at that, it's clear what God's will is. And he was saying like the economy has become that. I believe I want to have a more closed country. I'm gonna find an economic reason why the economy will work better if we're closed. Other people say, I want to live in a more open world. I want free trade. I want to find ways that free trade is better for the economy. And this argument, I don't think it's completely correct, but I think the interesting part about it is it does better explain why nobody, when they're showing what the economy is doing, very few people are looking at the actual numbers of the economy. Very few people are looking at the actual really boring government reports on the consumer price index and what stuff actually costs. They just say, eggs are expensive. And like the economy's fucked. Or like, oh, look at how cheap, cell phones are, and 20 years ago they were this much. Look at this, the economy is great, the economy is great. People use the economy and complaining about the economy in many ways as a kind of post facto way of explaining what they already believed in the first place. And I think more and more that's becoming true. I'm feeling more and more disconnect between the way that like politicians and even like academics and people talk about the economy and the actual numbers involved. People seem less interested in those. So I don't know if I'd say that's true, but I think that it's a useful way of looking at the type of problem we're having right now, where if you look on the internet, if I just share like, hey, I'm a small business owner, these tariffs are gonna affect my business in this way, everybody starts fighting, but they're fighting about their worldview. Like what I'm telling people is objectively true. Our prices are gonna go up if they tax us. There should be no argument about that. But everybody gets into an argument about it because the tariffs weren't there because they actually make sense. The tariffs were there because it fits a certain worldview to run a country in that way. And similarly, the opposition to them is often coming from the opposite worldview. And in between of it, where the people are, I feel stretched. And I feel like a lot of people in America, it's not just America, all over the world, this stretching between the poles is getting harder. And part of it is because of, I think, the way that the media is run, but I think part of it is also because part of it is because these things are so big, and like to really understand them, you need a PhD, and most people don't have a PhD, and even a lot of people with a PhD don't have the social skills to be able to share what they learned in their PhD, and so victory goes to kind of the loudest and the fastest, and the people who are most accurately able to tell people what they want to hear, and not necessarily to like what's actually going on in the economy. And in that way, what that economist said to me, what said in that video about the economy kind of being the new proxy of the will of God, makes a lot of sense. So I don't know if that's, it's kind of a rant. Questions over here. People are asking, I think they're saying if I can get stuff in before the deadline. Unfortunately, it just won't work that way. Like we just can't get anything that would be able to get here beforehand has already left and it's on the boat. I could airship stuff over, but I airshipped a shipment 7 weeks ago and it arrived and it's been stuck in customs for 7 weeks. So even airshipping it, I could pay the extra money, and then if it comes in late, or if there's a glut of everybody else doing the exact same thing, then it's, you could wind up paying for airshipping and have everything glutted. And for the porcelain, there's no way we can be profitable doing airshipping. I did it at the very beginning of the Teahouse during COVID because there was no other choice, and I made no money. Like this is one of the reasons why the prices have not changed on the website, basically from launch, is because the prices were artificially high because I started the business in COVID doing the shipping, and I made no money. But I was like, eventually the shipping prices will come down and I won't need to change the price up because I'll make my profit off of what I can gain of the difference between doing the air shipping and the boat shipping. But there's no way to get the porcelain over except by boat, and that I found. I don't know. Questions over here. Malachi JB says, hey Jesse, where were you when you got the fried tea leaves and noodles with the tea oil? I was in Taiwan at a place called Malkong. It's a great place to go if you like tea or just if you're in Taipei. It's like not even a day trip. It's accessible from the main city of Taipei near the Taipei Zoo. You go on a funicular, like a chairlift ride up to the top of a hill that's near Taipei. And from the top of the hill, you can see like the whole of the city of Taipei and the Taipei 101 Tower. And they have tea up there that they've been growing there. It's not literally the best tea in all of Taiwan because the mountain isn't as high enough, and but it's good tea that they grow there, and they grow it right next to the city, which is really why it's cool. That particular restaurant, I don't remember the name, but if you go up to Malcolm, it's not like hundreds and hundreds of restaurants up there. There's like 20 or something like that. If you wander for a bit, you'll probably find it. So that's a great one. It's super fun. Tiger Corp says, "Are you based in Taiwan?" No, I'm based in Los Angeles, but I split my time between LA and Asia. Most of my time in China, but every time I go back to Asia or every other time, I will stop by Taiwan as well. So very, very fun. All right, I have my friend coming over in 5 minutes. We have a meeting. I'm gonna log off now. I just want to get, again, the big news for people who don't know, the subscription box is continuing, but it's going to be delayed because of the tariffs and the new executive orders and the disruption to the customs. And I'm very sorry about that, but I'm going to be doing stuff like this to keep you guys up in the loop about, we're not going to do any price changes without telling anyone. We're not going to do any major changes to the subscription without telling anyone, but we're also not going to be able to guarantee you making that May 1st deadline. And so we're just gonna have to play it a little bit by ear until we figure out what the hell's going on. So that's the takeaway. So thank you all so much. Appreciate it. I really do appreciate your support. I'm scared, but I would be a lot more scared if I didn't have such good feedback from you guys saying that you're supportive, and we're gonna find a way through. We have all the paperwork to import the tea. We're going to be able to import the tea. I don't anticipate any major problems in just like having a total cutoff of the tea, but it's going to be a mess in the meantime. So have a good one, guys. I will see you around, and have a great day. Bye-bye. There we go. Oh, well, one last thing. I see In a Pinch says, "I wanted to tell you, you got me into this hobby. Without writing you paragraphs explaining, it's literally saved my life." Dude, thank you. Glad to be here with you. Always glad to have more tea friends. Glad to be a part of your tea journey, and I'm really glad that the tea has been so helpful for you. I mean, it really has a power. I don't know how to explain it. It's like comedy. Like, I don't know why comedy is so important, but it is. And the tea as well. It's like when you actually get making tea into your life, it's been very, very focusing and grounding, and brought me so many great friends and so many great experiences. There's so much I never would have expected in the tea that's in the tea. So definitely didn't want to overlook that comment. Thank you so much. Have a good one, guys. I will be seeing you around. Bye-bye.